If you're looking for some different layout ideas, I've got a couple quilts to show you that will give you some extra inspiration. This quilt was designed by one of my first students in our class that we offered at our store. Rebecca Clinton took the Stitching Cosmos techniques and took them to an entirely different level. And I want to point out a few things she chose to do on her quilt. This is how her journey started though. She did take it over the year-long course, so about 10 months. And with that, as the first couple months progressed, she was learning a lot about her machine. She had picked out fabric for her quilt, but about month 4 or 5, she decided that the colors were not jiving. And so she scrapped the whole idea and started over with some new fabrics. She fell in love with the colors that kind of changed grade. So the hues and things changed depending on where she cut her blocks from the fabric. And of course the black is a pop of color that makes it just all come to life. Here's the next thing. So on the cut around tool, we cut that inside curve and the outside curve. None of the techniques are featured on the fabric that is on the inside curved fabric piece. All the techniques are on the outside, and that gives the illusion that these circles are bigger, because they are. So that is just one thing if you're planning on how to start. This was a fabulous way to create another illusion. So instead of 20 blocks, there is actually 30 blocks, an inside border and an outside border, giving it a fabulous size to either display or to even put on a bed if you wanted to go to that size. The other thing that we're going to see when we get close and look at each of the individual techniques is that she added in her buttonhole block a ribbon that was black and white. Once she added that black and white ribbon, the whole quilt screamed for a little hint of black and white throughout. And with that, that little black and white inner border is totally what brings it to life as well. So let's go ahead and take a look a little closer at some of the favorite techniques that I've enjoyed looking at every time I see this quilt. And also, every time I look at it, I see something new. So it's exciting to come close and look at what she did with her fabulous, she did this on her HUSQVARNA Viking Ruby sewing machine. As we tour around this quilt, I'm going to point out some of the things that Rebecca did that really makes this quilt come to life. So starting with this particular block, we see the tassels. Each tassel is a different color, kind of changing color as we went. It's a little thicker, coarser yarn, almost like a fiber that you would use for cross stitch. Also, those black and white buttons really bring this to life. Next, we have the change of color in the ruffled block, and also those buttons change color to highlight, and variegated thread you're going to see throughout this quilt and its use. Here's the first block that we really see where the decorative stitches are shown only on the outside of the curve and only so wide. So as we see, they kind of come around and connect. This block features the gathering foot and the hemmer foot along the fabric that is the inserted in here on the black and white. Look at those great decorative stitches. And one thing Rebecca did is that she always just picked a decorative stitch and used it. You know, most of us probably wouldn't pick those little dancing ladies, but sure enough, put them in there. They're a great stitch and they really add to the funness of this quilt. Look at the pin tuck block. That is awesome, and the decorative stitches that go around. Plus, here is another place we start to see the decorative stitches coming together and connecting with the block next door. So if you are looking to add extra blocks and make your quilt bigger, you don't have to do every single technique. You can easily add some more decorative stitch blocks and some of your favorite techniques to add and make it bigger. When making your own chenille, plan to do those different color options to get a whole new look. And if you have fallen in love with paper piecing, look what you can do with different colored fabrics. And if you plan it right, you could do another one and connect one block to another block. Here is one of the blocks that have buttonholes, and I'm going to point out that these buttonholes have actually been placed much closer together than we talked about in class. The decorative stitch of the little heart kind of tacks that ribbon as it has gone through the buttonholes. So if you're looking for some other uses, and this is a great stitch to make this area look much wider than just the single buttonholes that you see. If you have an idea or see something from another class and want to just add it, love that little arrow extension from the flying geese block that's beside it. And again, quilting can totally add to all that you are looking for making your quilt stand out. Again, the decorative stitches have become the highlight of this particular quilt. Another use of doing buttonholes, and again, a fabulous stitch that has been stitched to accentuate it. I bet that block was done at the same time the other block was done. And whether you need to add a little pop of circle or you're covering up something you don't want anybody to see, remember you can always add circles once your blocks are stitched together. Remember you can add buttons and other accents to fill out your quilt once it's done. Now I am going to show you probably the one technique everybody asks about on this particular quilt. This quilt block features the bobbin work. And on Rebecca's machine, she had sideways motion stitches that kind of look like waves. And each time, but she sewed it more than once, over and over, but with bobbin thread or a coarser fiber in her bobbin, so she stitched upside down. And that layering of that decorative stitch over itself each time really became a focal point on this quilt. This is the one everybody asked me about. Here is the black and white ribbon that set everything off. And I love the little cars. It, as she said, reminded her of little taxis as she was seeing these coming together. The other thing that people ask me about is this particular ribbon. And I will tell you, that is a purchased ribbon that was kind of ruched or ruffled. And so she just found it, loved it, and stitched it into place here. Spanish hem stitching in a much bigger fringed loop. Again, that was probably something that she purchased. It could be something you could make if you wanted to get your own collection. But again, look where the couching has come in to do. Oh, speaking of that ruched ribbon that I just pointed out, look at how it extends over 2 blocks. It actually was stitched on once those 2 blocks were actually sewn together. So that was a little bit more planned, where these 2 blocks were sewed together, then the ribbon came all the way around, and then it was positioned in this quilt as half of a circle, not just a quarter of the circle. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing a little close-up of some fabulous details that some of our students have enjoyed after taking the Stitching Cosmos class and learning all about their machine.